You are standing in a grocery aisle. The fluorescent hum is the only witness. Your hand hovers over a box of something you do not need but desperately want. And then it begins. A voice, your own voice, but not quite. It says, "You have had a long week. You deserve this." Another voice, sharper, replies, "You are trying to save money. You know better." The bargain is silent. No one else hears it. But you feel the tug, the invisible opponent in your own mind. This is the silent negotiation within. You catch it in the quiet moments, in the pause before a purchase, a reply, a decision, a conversation between two versions of you. One wants comfort now, the other wants discipline later. And you are the mediator, the judge, the weary diplomat who never gets a recess. We all have this internal parliament, not a single voice, but a chorus. Each faction has its own agenda, the part that craves rest, the part that demands productivity, the part that fears judgment, the part that aches for freedom. They do not agree. They never will. And so they bargain. We call it self-talk or indecision. We treat it as a nuisance, a sign of weakness. But what if this negotiation is not a flaw? What if it is a window into something deeper? A glimpse of the architecture beneath thought. A clue that the self is not a monolith, but a committee. And the committee never stops meeting. We call it self-talk. We call it indecision. We call it being of two minds. But these are names for a surface pattern. The real shape beneath is stranger. The psychologist Richard Schwartz spent decades mapping this terrain. He called it internal family systems. The idea is simple and unsettling. The mind is not one thing. It is a system of distinct parts. Each part has its own voice, its own memories, its own role. One part protects you from shame. Another part pushes you to achieve. A third part holds the pain you have never fully felt. These parts are not metaphors. They are real psychological entities. They live inside you. They have their own agendas. And they are locked in a constant negotiation for the microphone of your attention. Think of the moment you are trying to sleep. One part wants rest. Another part replays the day's mistakes. A third part rehearses tomorrow's worries. This is not a malfunction. This is the system running as designed. Each part believes it is helping. The critic part believes it is keeping you safe from failure. The rebel part believes it is protecting your freedom. They do not realize they are at war. And so, you become the mediator. You listen to one, then another. You try to find a compromise. I will work for 1 hour, then rest. I will eat the salad, but also the dessert. This is how we maintain coherence. We bargain. We trade. We negotiate the terms of being ourselves. But here is the deeper truth. These parts are not enemies. They are exiled voices. And the negotiation is not a sign of weakness. It is the only way the self holds together at all. What drives this silent negotiation? Why do we argue with ourselves at all? The answer lies in a theory from the 1950s. Leon Festinger called it cognitive dissonance. The discomfort that arises when two beliefs clash inside the same mind. Festinger designed a simple experiment. He asked participants to perform a boring task, turning pegs on a board. Then he asked them to lie to the next participant. Tell them the task was fun. Some were paid $1, Others were paid 20. Later, they were asked how they really felt about the task. The ones paid $20 admitted it was dull. The ones paid $1 changed their minds. They said it was enjoyable. Why? The $20 group had a clear reason for lying. Money. No dissonance. The $1 group had no good reason, so their minds created one. They convinced themselves the task was not so bad. They negotiated with reality to avoid the pain of being a liar for almost nothing. This is the engine of the silent negotiation. When two parts of you disagree, the friction generates heat, psychological pain, and your mind will do anything to cool it. You change your beliefs. You reframe your choices. You tell yourself a story that makes the conflict disappear. You want the cookie. You also want health. The dissonance burns, so you bargain. I will exercise later. This is a special occasion. The cookie is small. The negotiation is not about the cookie. It is about avoiding the feeling of being split. Over time, this process shapes who you are, the beliefs you defend, the decisions you justify, the identity you build. All of it is shaped by the silent engine of dissonance, the need to feel whole, even when the wholeness is a story you tell yourself. So you sit at the table and the negotiation begins. One voice speaks with the weight of stone. It says, you should be more disciplined. You should work harder. You should not want what you want. This is the judge. In Jung's language, it is the persona, the mask you wear for the world, the image of who you ought to be. The judge demands order. It knows the rules. It has memorized every expectation placed on you since childhood, and it will recite them until you comply. But there is another voice. It speaks in whispers. It says, but I want the cookie. I want to stay in bed. I want to say no. This is the rebel. Jung called it the shadow, the part of you that holds everything you have disowned. Not evil, just inconvenient. The desires you learn to hide. The impulses that do not fit the mask. The rebel craves freedom, even when freedom means chaos. You know this dialogue. It happens a dozen times a day. The judge says you should call your mother. The rebel says you are tired. The judge says you should finish that project. The rebel says you deserve a break. Each side believes it is right, and neither will yield. What makes this negotiation so exhausting is that both voices are you. The judge is not an enemy. It is trying to protect you from shame, from failure, from the disapproval of others. The rebel is not a saboteur. It is trying to protect your spontaneity, your joy, your sense of self. They are both guardians, but they guard different doors. And when they shout at each other, you feel split. You feel the silence between them, that hollow ache of not knowing which voice to trust. So you try to silence one side. You tell the rebel to be quiet. You tell yourself you do not really want that thing. You push the thought away. And here is where the paradox begins. In the 1980s, psychologist Daniel Wegner asked participants to think about a white bear. Then he told them not to think about a white bear. You know what happened. The bear invaded every corner of their minds. The harder they tried to suppress it, the more it returned. This is ironic process theory. The mind monitors for the forbidden thought, and that monitoring keeps the thought alive. Suppression is a kind of attention in disguise. You do the same with the rebel. You tell yourself you should not want to skip the gym. You should not feel resentment. You should not crave the cookie. And every time you say should not, you feed the craving. The rebel grows louder in the silence you impose. It becomes a white bear. It becomes the only thing you can think about. The paradox is this: inner peace does not come from winning the argument. It does not come from the judge finally crushing the rebel, or the rebel overthrowing the judge. That is a war with no end. Instead, peace comes when you stop treating them as enemies, when you let both sides speak without trying to silence either. The negotiation becomes something else. It becomes a conversation, a collaboration. You do not have to agree with every voice, but you must let it be heard, because the moment you try to lock a voice away, it becomes a ghost that haunts every room. Step back now and see the whole picture. Your mind is not a throne with one ruler. It is a committee, a democracy of voices. The judge, the rebel, the pleaser, the protector, the dreamer. Each one has a vote. Each one has a reason for being there. And the silent negotiation is not a flaw. It is the very structure of consciousness. A mind that speaks with one voice is a mind that has lost its depth. The Stoics understood this. They spoke of the hegemonikon, the ruling center of the mind. Not a dictator, but a leader who listens to every impression, every impulse, without being ruled by any of them. The hegemonikon does not silence the judge or banish the rebel. It hears them both. It weighs their arguments. And then it chooses, not from fear, but from wisdom. This is what the Stoics called apatheia, not the absence of feeling, but the absence of being ruled by feeling. A clarity that comes from integration. Jung called this process individuation, the lifelong work of meeting every part of yourself, even the parts you would rather deny. The shadow, the persona, the inner child, the wise elder. You do not destroy any of them. You bring them into the light. You learn their language. You let them sit at the table. And so the silent negotiation within you is not a problem to solve. It is a practice, a daily act of self-compassion. You stop trying to silence the voices. You start chairing the meeting. You listen. You acknowledge. You decide. And in that quiet act of leadership, something shifts. The war becomes a conversation. The split becomes a whole. And you finally understand that peace does not come when the arguing stops. It comes when you learn to hold the argument with grace.